good time to get started. 1 minute past the hour, 9 o'clock in Seattle, noon in New York City, where Rina is. Thanks everyone for joining. I'm Melissa Burdick, president and co-founder of Pacvue. I'm here with Rina Yashayeva.
Yashayeva, almost.
Okay, almost. I'm the worst. I usually just know people by their first names anyway, so that's how we're gonna play again.
Totally fine.
He's the Vice President of Marketplace Strategy at Stella Rising. For those of you who don't know Pacvue, we're an enterprise platform for brand sellers and agencies to help them with e-commerce advertising across Amazon, Walmart, and now Instacart. Stella Rising is one of our partners, and Rina and I have something in common, which is that we both worked at Amazon for a while in the beauty category. So I'm really happy to have Rina here today. She's going to tell us a little bit about Stella and then what her favorite Pacvue feature is that she likes to use. And we'll get started with our beauty webinar today. So Rina, take it away.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Melissa. And thank you so much to Pacvue for having me today. Good morning. I'm thrilled to join to talk about beauty brand and discuss e-commerce and Amazon strategy. So as Melissa mentioned, just a brief introduction as to myself. I lead marketplace strategy at Stella Rising, focusing on growing beauty brands on Amazon. So similar to Melissa, my background is at Amazon. We were there at different times. I started off in Seattle, where Melissa is, moved back to New York. I am a diehard New Yorker. So spend most of my time in the beauty category, managing some of the larger vendors such as L'Oreal, and eventually moving over to launching dozens of new beauty brands. So took that experience over, brought it over to Stella Rising. So a little bit about who we are as an agency. So we're an award-winning marketing and media agency. One award we're actually super proud of, we have a few on the left-hand side, is a Glossy Award for brand agency collaboration for a beauty brand. Beauty really is our core. It's how we got started as an agency, and it is a majority of the business that we still hold today. So we won last year. We're back for a nomination this year, so fingers crossed there. Some highlights of what we do. We focus on insights-based communication strategy, which leads to our full media services. So this includes everything from paid social, SEM, SEO, and then of course, I'm here to talk about Amazon. We offer full Amazon services end-to-end. We optimize, manage, and advertise your business on Amazon. We also have an intelligence consulting practice, so we support the buy and sell side in the financial community. And lastly, one of the more unique features, personally one of my favorites of the agency, is our research community. So we have a proprietary research community called Glimmer. There are 30,000 women who are just your everyday beauty lovers like you and me. And we talk to them all the time. So every week to get their first-party insights, to learn about how they shop, what are they buying, where are they buying. And a lot of what we'll be discussing today actually is research from that community. So super thrilled to be speaking specifically about beauty because that is really what we were based on. So we can get started.
What's your most loved feature of Pacvue, Rina?
Just one. So we use Pacvue for several things. One of the main ones is the bid optimization for advertising campaigns, and that can be an entirely separate webinar. Essentially, that's one of the main things we use Pacvue for. But my personal favorite feature is the brand audit. Internally, we like to call this the report card, and I actually think that that's exactly what it is. So you essentially, you run this for a brand, so you input the number of ASINs, and it spits out a report card, a number. So 0 to 100. 100%, you're an A+ student, 80%, you're a B+ student, so on and so forth. So it takes into account a number of things. It takes into account your content, so that's your images, your bullet points, your number of reviews, your A+ content, and your character counts. And I think it gives a really powerful overview because it's one thing to come to a brand and say, you know, you're not optimized, you should be doing more of this. Not, you know, everybody has that understanding, but to come to a brand and say you have a 45% rating on Amazon, everybody understands what that means. So what I have here is an example. So this is a beauty brand that we engaged with on Amazon for some time, one of our current clients. They've been on Amazon for a while, but they just never optimized their business, whether it was, you know, a bandwidth issue, they weren't prioritizing it. So to show them that they needed help, we pulled the audit. So as you can see, the one on top was original before we started engaging with them. They had a score of 38.5%. This was driven down by their content, which was 24%. You can see that they had poor reviews, only at 3.2 stars, only 3 bullet points, and their copy was just not optimized. They were below the bullet points, they were below the average character counts across the board. So taking this information is how we are able to work with the CMO and have them understand that they really did have a long way to go to optimize their business. So from there, we prioritized their ASINs. We started working in groups of 10. We eventually optimized their entire catalog. We helped generate their reviews. We built out their A+ content. We added more images. So thrilled to say that now we're at a 99.9%. But it, of course, you know, it took a while to get there, and we did it in phases. And what this brand loved is as soon as we presented this, they wanted check-ins. Like every time we would do a little bit of work, they would ask us for, you know, the next results and the next results. So I would say certainly one of my favorite features. It definitely gives a really great before and after when we begin engaging with the brand, so they can see, you know, just how much opportunity there is on Amazon.
Yeah, it's really, I mean, I think the important takeaway too, you know, use Pacvue, use a different tool, but like having some way to quantify and give people results is really a great way to speak to, especially executives at a company, to be able to measure those results. So
exactly.
Thanks. That's a great example. Thanks so much for that. All right, we promise we're really going to talk about beauty now.
Awesome. So we'd love to start with some trends in the beauty category, then go into optimizations for digital, kind of talk about what's going on in the market with COVID-19 right now, chat about some new platforms and technologies, and end with Q&A. So you guys have the chat box. Please feel free to add in any of your questions through the chat box, and we'll get to as many as we can when we have time for them. All right. So I'd love to start off with some research. So I gave you a brief overview of Glimmer. So this is our research community. And as I mentioned, we do a good amount of research with them, talk to them about where they're shopping, how they're shopping. And this is actually one of my favorites. So we asked our beauty community, you know, before she even buys, where does she go to research for beauty products for the very first time? And we got an interesting answer. The answer was Amazon. Sometimes people don't necessarily think of Amazon as a place to research. We know that Amazon is a search-heavy site. We don't necessarily think of Amazon as a browse site. But the truth is she is going to Amazon just to discover products for the first time. Despite the fact that she still shops in stores, she goes to her specialty beauty retailers. Amazon is a core element in her total path to purchase experience. So 58% go to Amazon for the first time just to research, followed by D2C, followed by the brand websites, and then the store websites, and then social media after that. So let's take a look as to why. So after she does her research, where is she actually completing her purchase? So 3/4 of our audience, 75%, said they're shopping for Amazon on beauty, on Amazon for beauty, surpassing all of the other retailers. So this is then followed by Sephora and Ulta, and then you have your Mass, Walmart, and Target. Not surprisingly, D2C or the brand website comes in last at 41%. Realistically, she can be discovering at Sephora or Ulta for the first time and then buying on Amazon to replenish, or she could be reading reviews while she does in store and then still buying in store. I do this all the time. If I'm in a Sephora, I'll just read the reviews. I can still buy it in store, but you're using Amazon for that research aspect. So, you know, really understanding that the consumer is omnichannel. She's everywhere at all times, but the majority of where she's shopping is Amazon. And here's why. Convenience, variety, and price. So these are the top 3 reasons as to why she's turning to Amazon. She can shop day or night. You have the full variety. There's 2 million brands on Amazon. She has, you know, selection, as we call it at Amazon. And then, of course, the shipping perks. She appreciates the fast shipping, the free shipping, you know, especially if she's a Prime consumer. And then lastly, she loves that she can cross-shop. So 31% of consumers say that they can shop for other things as well. And this has proved even, you know, more crucial now during COVID, where she's really turning to Amazon to fill up her cart for everything at the same time. So then speaking of COVID, in the past few months, so as I mentioned, our community is highly engaged. So we're talking to them all the time. So when COVID-19 hit about 3 months ago, one of the first things that we did is we turned to Glimmer, we turned to our community, and we asked them, how they're feeling and what they're doing. Are they shopping? Are they not shopping? Overall, what is their behavior like? And we found that 80% of the audience agreed that to some extent they were shopping for products online more often now. And that made sense because brick and mortar stores were closing across the country, so they really had no other choice but to go to e-commerce. So then we dug deeper and we asked where. So 23% were choosing Amazon for their beauty needs, 17 Sephora.com, 11 Ulta.com. So this was interesting because her behavior remained consistent and loyal to Amazon. The research we talked about previously was pre-COVID. Now this is during COVID. And she's going to Amazon even for beauty. And realistically, this is where she's getting her essentials. So her gloves and her face masks and her groceries. And she's prioritizing that, but then of course she can get her beauty there as well. I don't think you and I are any exception there. A few days ago, I actually decided to count how many orders I have placed since I started in quarantine 3 months ago. Melissa, do you want to take a guess at just how many items I've bought on Amazon since we've been in quarantine for the past 3 months?
I would say 80.
So close, 90.
Wow,
I don't know if that's normal, but there's definitely a good amount of beauty in there, but 90 purchases just on Amazon alone in the past 3 months, but I guess we're a little biased there. So all of this goes to show that Amazon is, one of the places where she's going, but e-commerce as a whole is blooming in beauty, even during the global pandemic. So looking at some of the numbers, health, personal care, and beauty projections in 2020, 72 billion, up 32% year over year. So this is the second fastest growing category after food and beverage, and beauty accounts for 10% of all e-commerce sales. Looking at our portfolio specifically at Stella Rising, as I mentioned, majority of our business is beauty. And our beauty revenue is actually up 51% to prior periods of pre-COVID and up 35% year over year. So this is being driven by our skincare brands, our self-care brands. Self-care and wellness are really growing and maintaining right now while consumers are focusing on themselves during this time. And the chart that we have on the right is from eMarketer, a poll that was taken pretty early on, so in March, just when this was all starting, and it said that consumers are 65% more likely to purchase cosmetics and personal care digitally during the pandemic. This was actually higher than food and beverage, which I thought was fascinating, but just goes to show that food and beverage is not necessarily something that you are comfortable with shopping online. Now we've all had to because we've had no choice, but beauty came in first here. So now let's look at all of these same exact metrics, but for Amazon. So Amazon 2020 projections for the year, 23 billion. This is post-COVID, up 45% to last year. So similar to total e-commerce, beauty is the second fastest growing category. So once again, after food and beverage, we know that grocery is #1 on Amazon, growing exponentially 62%. And beauty is right behind them at #2. So I spoke to Amazon in mid-April, and they mentioned that in February, the entire beauty business was up 30% to last year. And that's pretty normal because 30 to 35 is standard growth for them year over year. But then by April, they were up 60% to last year. And of course, this was skewed towards, things like hand sanitizers that fell into the beauty category, but they also captured, some other products that we'll talk about. But I think what's truly crucial to note is that 32% of all retail e-commerce beauty sales happen on Amazon. So 1/3 of every single beauty item that's purchased online is bought on Amazon. I think that's absolutely crucial to understand because if you're not there, you're just missing out on a huge chunk of the opportunity. So once again, looking at our portfolio, so our Amazon Beauty client portfolio, we know that in the beginning, there were definitely challenges. So once COVID hit, Amazon prioritized space in its warehouses. So it started making room for essential items such as hand sanitizers and face masks. and therefore vendors received smaller POs, some stopped receiving them altogether. And then sellers had restrictions, you know, some could send, some couldn't. So for the brands that were deemed essential, their business was up, they were doing great, but for the rest of us in beauty, there were challenges. So March week 4 was really the lowest point. Sales really began to decline March week 1. You have the chart right here on the right side. And the lowest point, revenue dropped 38%. People were driven by panic buying, prioritizing their essential items. Starting from March week 4, we really began to see things pick up. So we've really seen a steady incline since then. And right now, revenue is actually up 50% to pre-COVID. So very much in line with our total e-commerce business. And our brands are very hopeful for the future. I feel like we're definitely over that hump, but now that inventory is back, shipping times are back, shipping times were delayed 2 weeks, sometimes even 3 weeks for the items that were not deemed essential. And now we're back on the incline. So what exactly was she buying all these months while she sat at home? So getting into the actual beauty trends for the past several months, we know that salons and spas were closed due to COVID-19. So consumer behavior shifted towards DIY. All those services that she couldn't get in salons, she was doing it herself. People learned how to cut their own hair. I cannot even imagine, but this is what people were doing. So hair clippers were the top search term May and April. Just to give you an idea, it was in the 300s in February, spiked to #1 in April, and it's staying that way strong in May. Speaking of hair dye up 300% since February, but not only regular hair dye, we've really seen like crazy colors. So green and pink, because people are staying home and they don't have to go into the office, they're actually taking this time to dye their hair crazy colors while they're at home. So that's been a huge trend. Hair oil, giving themselves at-home treatments since they can't go to the salon. But then with the majority of Americans staying at home, they've been washing their hair less. So hair washing and styling frequency has declined short term. That included shampoo, conditioners, and hair styling products. And then of course, searches for hairstyles overall have declined. Then we have nails. So nails have been growing like crazy in the past few months. So whereas, you know, top searches on Amazon were always around makeup brushes, makeup organizer, essential oils, they've moved towards gel nail polish. Then they moved towards something longer lasting. So dip powder, polygel, to do their own services while salons are closed. Overall, gel nail polish increased almost 800% since February. On Amazon, looking at those numbers on Google, up 12% to last year. Some of the brands were Peppy Gel and Daisy D&D that had, you know, really high growth to last year. And then waxing. So once again, since salons are closed, women were turning to do those services themselves. Waxing kit increased 150% since January, and it's maintained a super strong position as number 8, both in April and May. So looking at some of the other categories, we know that skincare has been the most resilient over the past few years. It's been the fastest growing category globally, up 26% growth over the past 5 years. And, you know, it's been proven to stay that way, you know, even during a global pandemic, because consumers are practicing at-home self-care in lieu of, you know, getting a facial. So we've seen that accessories and face devices were significantly up. So something like a derma roller or a jade roller. I love my jade roller, cannot live without it. The jade rollers are certainly having a moment. They were up 26% to last year on Amazon. Sunscreen went through a little bit of a rough patch because consumers were staying indoors, vacations were canceled, spring breaks were canceled. She wasn't really going outside. Declined 32,000 searches on Google, significantly dropped January through April. Now that we're going into sun season, it is slowly coming back. Now that we're really heading into June, July, and then stay-at-home orders are easing up. We know cosmetics has always been, you know, challenging, especially in the past few years. So during COVID, what's working in cosmetics is actually face bronzers, up 40%. I do think this is an interesting one, not something that I would have naturally expected. And then eye products. So eyebrow gels, eyebrow tinting, eyelash products. So, we talked about the lipstick effect and how during a recession, that's an option and women tend to buy lipsticks more. However, we're all wearing masks. So lipsticks are actually down 75%, and the focus is now on the upper half of our eyes. And then we have fragrance. So as people were saying at home, more fragrances have declined 40% from January to April. We saw a huge increase in May, but that was due to Mother's Day, then they kind of evened out. So even though fragrances, people weren't purchasing it for themselves because social situations were less, she wasn't really going anywhere, where the fragrance category saw growth was at-home fragrances, so candles, both on Amazon and off Amazon, so huge growth, so 25% for candles. But on the right, we just have a great visual. We have this tool that we love. It's called Spate, created by 2 ex-Googlers. And this is how we're able to get a lot of the data that we shared with you, but you can see this great visual as to the V trend. So very similar to the performance that I shared with our own brand, in which you see that sharp decline, but everything is really picking back up because consumer interest in beauty is rising again, which makes me very hopeful. Melissa, I'm going to turn it over to you to walk through some recommendations post-COVID.
Awesome, thanks so much. So, there's been a lot of the prestige brands have been big holdouts on Amazon. They've always seen Amazon as mall of the mess. There's been a lot about Nike kind of putting their basics on Amazon and then pulling off. I mean, the reality is Nike has a very big direct-to-consumer business. And so if anyone has maybe the ability to do that, it's them. But, with all this traffic coming to Amazon, stores being closed, there's more traffic than ever here. So it's really a great time to reconsider, if you're not direct on Amazon, to be, because your customers are there and they're going to find you there even if you're not direct. So this is an example of Bobbi Brown. When you search Bobbi Brown mascara, it's really a good idea to own your own brand on Amazon and be able to control that. And so you can see here that they're not doing that. And it is a great opportunity to conquest as well when you have maybe not so great detail pages, and a great opportunity to be able to pay to be in the placements on those pages that are highly trafficked. People are coming there. Content matters even more now. So, that's been a big focus of a lot of, agencies building great content, and that probably will just continue to accelerate. And really being able to explain color. Color has been one of those really difficult things to explain on Amazon. And so, we kind of have thought in the past a little bit more about replenishment, but more and more, and there will be more tools we'll talk about in a second around AR, VR that will help people understand the color that they need. But being able to create the content that you need for digital is really important. And so on the next slide, the other thing is also thinking about engaging and informative content across platforms. So I like House Labs because, they're an Amazon exclusive brand. They're, doing a lot of content across platforms that drive to Amazon. So if you're looking for examples of brands driving from Instagram to Amazon, look at House, which is Lady Gaga's cosmetic brand, as I'm sure all of you know. If you look at Instagram and YouTube, and then I'd be remiss to not talk about TikTok, which is kind of my new favorite thing, really a much more upper funnel platform for beauty especially, but leveraging influencers to talk about your brand as well. And this was definitely one of my most favorite kind of ads that was very native and very relevant to the time. If you haven't seen it, I'd really recommend after this webinar to Google Eva Longoria talking about L'Oreal's, how to color your roots during this time frame. It just was a really great example of a very relevant ad during this time frame. And oh, guess what? It shows up on the Amazon detail page as one of the videos because it's pretty informative about how she does it, and is a really great tie and example of leveraging that content that was created and, really helping to describe your products on Amazon.
Melissa, I love that you mentioned House. I'm actually wearing it both on my eyes and my lips right now. I love House. I think that Gaga did an amazing job when she chose to launch on Amazon. I'm sure she had the choice of every single retailer. She chose to be exclusive. She said that, Amazon let her do whatever. I'm sure they had, less requirements than something like a Sephora, which is how Rihanna chose to launch Fenty. But even with the amount of content that they launched, they went straight to building an amazing store. They went straight to their A+ content. All of their media, including their social, their organic social, their paid social, their D2C, everything drove to Amazon. And that's why they're doing so well, because they prioritized it. So I always love using health as an example. And I happen to also love their products. So then speaking of content, so all of the content you mentioned off Amazon is so crucial and just as important as your content on Amazon. So as we learned in the beginning, she is going there to do her research. So she's paying attention on everything out there. So as a brand, you have a role to educate your consumer. So here I have 3 examples of A+ content. So we build all of our A+ in-house at Stella Rising. And here are 3 examples that I wanted to show you. So A+ content, if you guys are not familiar, it's enhanced content. It lives below the fold, so underneath your bullets, underneath your images. And it serves the purpose of educating your consumer through custom images, enhanced content. And we've seen that by doing so, you're actually increasing your conversion. And these pages have shown to increase sales up to 10%. So on the left-hand side for one of our fragrance clients, Clean, of course, when it comes to fragrance, the most important thing for any fragrance brand is our notes, because we're doing the impossible. We're trying to sell fragrance over the internet. We cannot sell it. So it's our job to bring that alive and at least talk about the fact that it has notes of lavender or bergamot and really just display that through the screen. In the center, we have a brand specifically focused on menopause skincare, but what was important about this product is how to use it. It's a pretty new product out there in the market. They're really just pioneers. They're just reinventing the category as a whole. So how do you use this mist on your neck, on your wrist, on your face? So educating her, because just these bullets are not enough. And so we find that she needs a lot of education, especially when it comes to new products. And then on the right-hand side, we have a hair care brand, African Pride. And the focus here was really on ingredients, the fact that it had castor oil and shea butter, that was really important. So a lot of the content that we do and a lot of content, that we talk about brands like House Labs, they took that opportunity to educate their consumer past just the bullets, because the consumer she's looking at the entire page. So if you guys don't have A+ content, definitely make it a note to start designing some. So shifting gears, now that you have your content, your pages look amazing. So it's time to actually drive some traffic. So shifting gears into the #1 factor that will really accelerate your business on Amazon, and that's advertising. So advertising is actually how we got started in this space, because we are a media agency. So we had our experience advertising on Google. We put that into Amazon. Then we started partnering with people like Pacvue, which really helped us optimize our campaigns. But the truth is, it is never enough to just have good products on Amazon if nobody can ever find it. So just like you have your set budget on Google and on Facebook, super important to have your separate budget on Amazon. So we advertise to increase traffic, to build awareness, to drive revenue, but also to protect yourself against the competition, and of course to feed that very famous Amazon flywheel. So looking at the numbers, Amazon advertising, there's 2 pieces to it. There is search and display. Search is about 75%, display is the remainder. So overall, Amazon advertising revenue is forecasted to be $13 billion in 2020, growing 33% year over year. And it's growing faster than Facebook, Twitter, and Google, because brands are realizing that they need to have a presence to advertise on Amazon as well. And Melissa is going to go through some of the details of how to do that.
Yeah, so first of all, I hope I'm not offending anyone in the audience if you are part of the Clarisonic brand, but I thought I would just pick on this brand a little bit because it really supported the argument that I wanted to make around, we've talked about just the increase of traffic coming into Amazon with stores closed. Clarisonic is a good brand you can find at Nordstrom and on Amazon directly, but it's really important now more than ever to also protect your brand and to keep up the awareness and branding. And then it is a lot harder to regain that lost share when you do have competitors kind of coming in and conquesting you, which is what is happening here with Clarisonic. And just to kind of expand upon this even more, so when you search Clarisonic skin brush, the paid placements, the sponsored brand ad, which is the first one underneath the toolbar, and then the sponsored product ad, are both kind of niche competitors that have come in. And it's very important to note too that the sponsored product ad, that is the left-hand side, it's a $9.99, brush head replacement versus the Clarisonic, which is, 3 times the price. Especially as we're heading into a recession, people are going to be coming in looking for lower priced items. And so this is a way that this niche player has come in and taken market share from Clarisonic at a lower ASP. And you can even see the first review talks about how it's even better than the product that comes with it in the first place. Okay. So this is why it's really important if you're Clarisonic to be protecting your brand, to be making sure that you're showing up in those paid placements. When you are the market leader, you have a target on your back. And so really understanding where you are in the market and what's happening to you. So there's some things that you can be looking at, like share of voice, that helps you track this. But on the next slide, we have a few kind of best practices around advertising, ensuring an offense and defense strategy. And this is kind of evergreen, but especially now, when people are coming in and searching for your brands, what we recommend is they're already looking for your brand, so they know it. So it's a good opportunity to trade them up, to go to higher ASPs, higher case pack sizes. But if they don't know your product, or they're just coming in looking for face brushes or whatever it is, then category, competitive, or non-branded terms, really that's an opportunity to get awareness of your product and come in with your lower ASP, smaller count pack size of your portfolio. So if we want to look at this, putting this into practice on the next slide, let's take, OPI nail polish as an example. So when you search OPI nail polish, the first paid position, you're really looking at that more premium, higher ASP product, their $13, item. And then the first organic placement is their lower ASP, kind of their everyday product that's a little bit lower price. That's a great example of someone knows OPI, they're coming in, they're searching for it, and it's a great way to kind of upsell them into the brand. House does a similar concept as well. So when you come in and search for House Laboratories, you're shown, a multi-pack, higher ASP $48 product that has a portfolio of colors, which is a great way for people to kind of come in, determine what color is what they like, and then they can go bigger into that kind of colorway. And then, the first organic position is a lower ASP, like each. So that's kind of that in practice. So now we're going to talk about new platforms and technologies, kind of trends as well. Like I said, finding color, even from my early days as an Amazon vendor manager, I think I was one of the first beauty buyers at Amazon, trying to figure out color and color swatches. People didn't even have the assets, let alone the ability to determine color. So really think that this whole online movement, will people really want to try on color in store? Probably not, for a while at least. And so all of these kind of augmented reality technologies are going to come to play. And so the question is, are you working with these technologies today? Have you identified a partner and developed the right asset? So that's really kind of a core takeaway to be thinking about right now. And on the next slide, so Amazon has partnered with Modaface. You can kind of see this on their detail pages. I've heard whisperings that there's going to be more coming to play around this. And so I think that, just asking your retail partners, how are they developing AR tools? How can you play into that with them is a really good idea. Like I said, during quarantine, my 11-year-old daughter has been teaching me TikTok. So that's been one of the things that I've been trying to learn. And I did do a panel a couple weeks ago with Ekta, who leads digital at Elf Cosmetics. And they've really been a big pioneer of beauty on TikTok. And so, according to her, TikTok is a game changer. We started with a challenge, and that's kind of one of the things that beauty brands are starting to do are these challenges. Created a campaign around it. It went viral, celebrities, millions of views. what we've learned is that it's an opportunity for product launch, influencers reviewing, and sales skyrocketing. So this is a really great campaign. One of the biggest things that I recommend is download TikTok if you haven't already. Check out this challenge because it's been just this huge viral sensation. It's much more upper funnel, of course. And the other thing too, I was talking to someone yesterday, but you know, TikTok is fun. And during this time of COVID, it's really accelerated TikTok for sure. But it's, you know, it's kind of an escape. You can get away from all the like horrible news. Everyone's doing these dances and they're having fun. And so it's really a great platform for beauty enthusiasts.
Definitely agreed with you there.
Everyone on the chat saying how much they love TikTok. So it is really a great up and coming platform.
Yeah. No, I agree. I downloaded it during quarantine to kind of see what the hype is all about. I have like 6 whole followers. It's mainly like all my 15-year-old cousins actually. So kind of looking at the platform as a whole, this is an infographic that we published a few weeks ago. So the total TikTok universe has 52 million users in the US. And out of that, 12 million were added in March. So just in March alone, when everybody was stuck at home and they had the urge to learn the Savage dance, I did not bother learning that dance, but it is out there. So this led to almost a 50% increase between January and March. And then no surprise, the Gen Zers are way ahead of the rest of us. And they're the top audience on TikTok. So half of them have felt the financial impacts of COVID. And Melissa, I love what you said about escape, because that's exactly why they're going there. You know, they're welcoming a fun distraction from the pandemic, from the stress, from everything that's going on. So moving into some key takeaways as we find ourselves on the other side of the pandemic, hopefully, you know, things are still slowly opening up across the country. New York just started phase 1 just 2 days ago. But we're acknowledging that brands are still being cautious about a pending recession. They're being careful about their dollars, how they're spending, how they're advertising. So just some actionable ways to drive success on Amazon, kind of summarizing everything we just spoke about. We spoke about content. You know, if right now your business is, you know, slightly down, if you're being impacted negatively, this is actually the time to focus on your content. So take that time, build out your images, enhance your content, perfect your store, and really lay the foundation, because once you can start advertising again, you only want to drive traffic to pages that look 100%. Inventory, I'm so happy to say that things are back to normal. I'm a little scared to say that, but for sellers, the beauty category was a lucky one, because the beauty category as a whole was actually cleared to send an FBA. So the household category, the baby category, the beauty category, they were cleared. It's not like you were in apparel that wasn't deemed essential and that category wasn't cleared to send FBA. But even so, there were some restrictions about some new items weren't able to be sent, and then vendors, of course, they had the painful experience of just having that decline in orders. But now POs are increasing again. FBA sellers are able to send as usual. So make sure you're monitoring that at all times. We recommend 8 to 12 weeks on hand, but honestly, it all depends on your lead time. It's different for every single client, depends on your case bags, depending how fast you can ship. But we never want to be in a situation again where you can't ship and you just don't have enough in the warehouse. If you guys are an FBA seller, just keep in mind you're not getting charged long-term storage fees for a year. So I would rather you have more in the warehouse in case something happens, like a COVID, and then you don't have the opportunity to send more products. In terms of advertising, don't stop. That is the #1 word of advice. We've had, you know, customized conversations with every single one of our brands. You know, March week 2, every single brand, we adjusted our strategy slightly, making sure we were still staying in line with our goals, hitting our targets. But the main theme was to keep going. So it's dangerous to stop advertising, and a lot of why is what Melissa talks about, and that's your defense. Because if you stop, then your competitors are going to take over. And we always break out advertising into 2 parts: defense and offense, brands and non-brands that we chatted about. So we set our goals at the top line level, but when we optimize, we then optimize by tactic. So at the very least, your brand terms must absolutely be protected because this is your most valuable audience. This is your most loyal audience. They already know your brand. They're coming to you, they're raising their hands, and they're the ones that have the highest chance of conversion, the highest return on ad spend. So it's important to fund that brand demand fully before, beginning to conquest and putting the remainder of your dollars to getting new customers. So we recommended to keep that strategy on 100% for all clients, and we continue to do so. And then your offline strategy, your non-brand. So this is, a conversation to be had. We've seen some brands turn this off in the past few months, but it really does depend on your budget. We want to make sure you're still converting profitably. We want to make sure you're still gaining new consumers. So it's super important to make sure we're looking at your campaigns individually to make sure you're running them profitably. The good news is that Amazon is a real-time bidding auction, so you can turn them on, pause, or restart at the click of a button. So for those brands that did have to pause their non-brand in the past few months, they're coming back on now, and we can adjust, pause, restart, etc. And then lastly, keep an eye out on the rising platforms. So as we begin to enter this new normal, definitely not normal, but the new normal, these are the platforms not only helping you build brand awareness, but aiding purchase as we replace the physical shelf. And my favorite way to close off essentially any Amazon conversation is to always think outside of the buy box. As much Amazon Kool-Aid as I've drank in the past few years, and Melissa, I'm sure you can relate, and it's been a lot of Kool-Aid, we cannot live in an Amazon bubble. We absolutely can't. Amazon doesn't function in a vacuum, and Amazon is oftentimes just not alone. It's not enough to carry a brand alone. So everything you're doing off of Amazon has a direct impact on Amazon. So pay attention to your social media, your organic and your paid. Even if it's not driving to Amazon, that message still has to be consistent across the board. Your D2C is the place where she goes to educate herself. She can learn about the brands, come right back to Amazon, especially if you don't offer free shipping. She can go do some research, learn some stuff on your site, and then come back to Amazon, one-click purchase, free shipping, etc. And then now is the time to then maximize those ad dollars. So especially if you are in a store and those stores are still being closed, we're trying to mitigate that loss from brick and mortar sales by capturing that increased demand online. So the same goes for advertising on Amazon, just like off Amazon. So making sure you're allocating those dollars appropriately. Of course, your PR and press always has a huge impact on brand awareness. And all of this goes to show that your consumer really is omni-channel. The number that I love to quote is 86%, again, from one of our research panels, but 86% of beauty consumers are omni-channel. So yes, they're shopping Amazon, but they're also shopping Sephora and your site and brick and mortar, and they're all over the place. So ask yourself where Amazon fits into your holistic e-comm strategy and ensure that all channels are working synergistically at the same time. Because at the end of the day, we have one main goal, and that's to grow your brand across the board, no matter where we are. And as we're doing all of this, pay extra attention to messaging, because consumers are listening right now more than ever before. They're paying attention. They're looking for brands who share their values. So 61% of adults find it important that the brands they buy from are ethical. This was a recent study that we did about how women are feeling during COVID. And, they're paying attention to how brands were handling COVID. And then in the past few weeks, how brands were, handling social activism and their response there. But she also wants to hear the good. The good is still out there. But at the same time, we should be, sensitive. And at the end of the day, common sense marketing should prevail above all. And then taking all of this into account, understanding that COVID really changed consumer behavior forever. So even if brick and mortar is starting to open back up slowly but surely, e-comm is not slowing down anytime soon.
Awesome. That was a lot. And we're at, we got
we're exactly at 12:45.
Yeah, no, we're good. So there's been a lot of great questions coming in here. There's a couple questions that came in at the onset of the, when people are filling out their forms. So why don't we take one from here, but then answer some of these here. How this is a big one, like how should brands think about 1P versus 3P? And this is also one of the questions we got here, which is, where do you want to sell your branded product on Vendor Central or FBA? So those are kind of two similar ones. What do you think?
Great question. 1P versus 3P, always a hot topic. I feel like this could be a separate webinar entirely on its own. So I come from the 1P side, so does Melissa, so we can talk about this like all day long. But the truth is, like, we can be impartial now. And the truth is, there is no right or wrong. So each has their pros and their cons. So 1P or vendors have dramatically shifted in the past 2 to 3 years. So to give you guys the background, this is a direct wholesale relationship in which Amazon buys inventory directly from you. They add a markup just like any retailer, and they fulfill to the consumer. So the pros is that they take care of everything. They take care of the fulfillment. They come to you. They ship it to the consumer. They take care of all customer service. So think of, you know, the large brands. I'm talking about the L'Oreal, P&G, Unilevers of the world. These are the brands with the volume and/or who've been grandfathered in. Today, that is reserved for brands that are $10 million and above. So if you had a choice back then, you really no longer have a choice now unless you fit that threshold. And there was a point in time when vendors, they got special perks. You know, they got access to events and reporting and brand analytics and advertising. And today, that parity is almost completely there with 3P or the other side. So 3P, third party, Seller Central, that is essentially selling self-service. So you are selling on Amazon, you store your products in Amazon's warehouse. If you choose to go FBA, you pay them storage fees, and then they fulfill to the consumer. So here you have greater control over your pricing and over your inventory because you get to determine how many units you send to Amazon. So rather than sitting and waiting for Amazon to place an order, you get to determine, you know, we forecast for our clients every single week, you know, how much to put into Amazon's warehouse. And of course, there are lower margins. So for the CFOs out there, obviously, your margins are super important. You have lower margins as a third-party seller. And then Amazon Beauty adds a whole other complexity because there are different ways to sell in beauty. There's mass beauty, there's luxury beauty, there's professional beauty, there's indie beauty. And then within each one of those, there's 1P and 3P. So it's not that one is necessarily better than the other. It depends on your goals and your budgets. But if it is a new brand launching today, right now, we do recommend that they launch as a 3P seller and specifically FBA. That way you are Prime eligible and you're not missing out on those sales.
Awesome. Okay, so a question from the audience that I can take first, which is how do you feel about pausing ads during peak hours to minimize CPC and increase ROAS? Do you feel it will hurt brands and decrease sales in the long run? So my response to this, and let me know if you'd speak differently, Rina, but basically we don't recommend pausing during peak hours. So that's when you have your best chance of getting in front of new customers. You can use features like day part bidding to like stop ads during the very early mornings, or like, you know, people's budget typically resets at midnight when there's just not a lot of people. So like pausing during the non-peak hours is typically to save budget and let others exhaust theirs first is kind of what we recommend. Would you have a different opinion or say anything differently? Yeah.
And we use Pacvue for that.
Awesome. And then what's a defense offense split in terms of percentage for ad budget? Like, how do you think about that offense defense strategy?
Yeah, that's a good question. So for us, rather than having it be a percentage of spend, we actually want to fully fund. So we actually want to maximize your defense. We want to max out, otherwise known as branded terms. We want to fund that fully. So honestly, that can sometimes be 100% of your budget, and that's okay because that's most important, because we would so much rather capture all of the demand that's there, because you would never want a consumer to go out there and to search for your brand and to get somebody else's products instead. So of course, offense is super important. Getting new customers is important, but we do recommend to fully fund your defense, fully fund your brand terms first, and then whatever you have left, then put that into offense, and it's going to be super different for every single client.
What about for those that have really small budgets? So I represent a small beauty brand on Amazon. With Amos being so competitive, what would your recommendation be around ad dollars? for the smaller players?
Yeah, good question.
And DSP.
Especially for the smaller players. So I think that in terms of starting off, we always think of it as a tiered approach. So I would not recommend to start off with AMS and DSP. We would recommend to start off with AMS, now known as sponsored ads, so your search advertising first. And I always think of DSP or display as something you graduate to. So overall, the way that we think about our budget is we recommend 10% of your top line sales to go back into your advertising. So give or take a little more, a little less, I'm okay with like 9 to 15%, but 10% is usually the standard of what we recommend. If you're a new brand and if you have zero history out there and you obviously don't know the demand that's going to be out there, we recommend just something small that you can test, even if it's $5,000, because as I mentioned, the good news is everything is done in real time. So if it's working, you can increase it. If it's not working, you can decrease it. But we'll start with something small like 5K. We'll come up with the strategy that makes sense, as we mentioned, defense versus offense. And then from there, we can scale. So month 1, we generated 5X. We generated 5K and got X in return. We can see what would make sense for the future months and then build the strategy from there. But I would not recommend launching DSP at the same time as AMS. The background of DSP is it's not search driven. So it's programmatic display, just using Amazon's first party data. So just like you can do display advertising off of Amazon, on Amazon, you're using first-party data from Amazon to target based on interest, whether you are in market, your demographics, your geographics, etc. But it is more of an upper funnel tactic. So rather than splitting your dollars, we want to make sure you're getting through your search first, and then eventually working your way up, and then you can add it in months, 2, 3, 4, 5, once you begin to generate some sales.
Awesome. And then the variety pack question. So have you seen success with selling variety packs? How about multi-packs, 3 packs or 1 packs?
Yeah, great question. So I think variety packs are a great option, especially in beauty, especially if you're low ASP. So it depends if you're a vendor or a seller, but if you're a vendor, your margins are going to be about 50%. If you're a seller, your margins are going to be about 25%. So either way, if you're selling it, a mascara that is $7, but you have to pay $5 in fees, obviously you're walking away with very little. So if you can bundle it, we definitely suggest that you do, but only if it makes sense. Something like two eyeliners, 2 lipsticks, that works, but just make sure it's something that the consumer will be buying. The recommendation we have here is a lot of consumer research. Not consumer research, competitor research. Look at what your competitors are doing, because we want it to be profitable. At the end of the day, you will not be successful if you are not profitable. Amazon won't be happy if you're not profitable. You won't be happy if you're not profitable. So if that means having to bundle your 1 packs into 3 packs, certainly do so. The example I gave earlier, actually, of African Pride, they had very low ASP. They were in Target, they were in Walmart, they can afford to sell $4 products. Amazon, we absolutely cannot do such a thing. So we did a lot of competitor research, and we looked at what were the 3P sellers already selling and what were our competitors selling. And then we bundled everything. Sure, we sold the 1 packs if we were able to be profitable, but our #1 drivers were all 3 packs. So I think it depends on, I definitely support it, but I think it definitely depends on the product and making sure that the pricing makes sense. So if it's a 3 pack, make sure that the price is equivalent to 3 or a little bit lower. Do not mark it up. I've seen brands that do this. The consumer will notice, and it's a horrible experience. So if you are bundling, make sure that the price makes sense as well.
Awesome. All right. Well,
so many good questions.
I know. Let's just do one more question because it is getting close to 10 o'clock, and we like to end a little bit early. How do you track down an Amazon vendor manager? What's the secret?
I was hoping you would ask that question. That's a good one. So the short answer, the simple answer is that you don't. So unfortunately, vendor managers, Melissa and I have both been in that role. They're reserved for top tier vendors only, right? So I manage brands such as L'Oreal, Maybelline, Conair, and they paid for it. So my brands paid, up to $500,000 to have me on their business. So unless you are in that category or you invest, back then it was called strategic vendor services, now it's called strategic account services or SAS, Unless you have the budget to do so, then there is no vendor manager on your account. I've ignored more brands than I care to admit to all of you out there, because the truth is Amazon moves towards hands off the wheel, right? So they want to make sure they're allocating their resources, and the resources being, their vendor managers, appropriately. So if everybody is able to manage their business on their own, they want you to do that. So unless you're one of Amazon's top brands, you're not likely to get a hold of a VM. My suggestion would be, obviously you can go ahead and learn the platforms as much as you can on your own self-service. But, I think what will really help is just to, hire, whether it's an agency, it's a consultant who already has the relationships built in, especially with the beauty team, because then the hard work is done for you. But I don't want to sugarcoat it and say that you will track down a VM, because that is oftentimes not the case for brands. So we do recommend to work with somebody who already has those relationships.
Awesome. Well, I know we didn't get to all the questions. We'll do a blog post after and answer them fully. So we'll make sure that we get that out to everybody and answer all the questions that you had. And in the interim, if you want to talk to either Rina or myself, please send us for Pacvue, sales@pacvue.com, and Rina has her email address here if you have any additional questions. But really hope you all enjoyed our beauty discussion. Would love to hear from all of you about what you guys are doing, what new innovations you're thinking about, and hopefully you have a rest of a good week. Thanks so much, Rina, for participating with us. That was a lot of great information that you shared. So really, really helpful to the community. Thank you.
Thanks for having me, Melissa. Appreciate it. Bye, everyone.
Awesome.
Thank you.
Bye. Thank you.